folks. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of Plan A Conversations. How is your week going? How is everything going for you all? Listen, as you all know, the very, very, very best thing that I just do not take for granted is being connected to some of the most beautiful, innovative, talented, resilient, and people who just really challenge you to be your very, very best. And so for our online viewers, the face that you're seeing is Angela Williams, and I'm going to get back to that introduction. And for our audio listeners, you're going to hear her voice very soon. She has been an incredible, incredible mentor to me, an amazing confidant, just somebody who I always go to and just think about whenever I need an extra sense of resilience. But before we get into that conversation, let you all know, those Plan A meditations, they are up and your feedback has been really great. Again, on YouTube at Plan A with Clay. And so these are from my second book, 365 Plan A Nightly Meditations. And it's me guiding you through each of those meditations. Look, there's 365 that's coming at you, never duplicate it. So wherever you are in your purpose related journey, for if you're an artist, if you are someone who's just really trying to have a better work-life balance, trying to figure out your purpose, make those career transitions and have a deeper sense of who you are as a person, check those out. They really are great. A special thank you to last week's guest, Cedric Bridgeforth, and to Dr. Fritz Gillette, who was the week before last. Listen, you guys are eating these episodes up, and you keep coming and saying, we want more and more and more and more of people who are just sharing their life experiences. And so as I segue to today's conversation, again, I want to thank you for your listenership and also the comments. Keep them coming. As I said to you all before, the beautiful face that you are seeing is Angela Williams. And before she talks and tells us all the unique and wonderful things she's doing, you all do not understand how this woman came in and made me change my game to level up. A good friend of ours and colleague introduced us, Kelly English, years ago. And I was facilitator when Angela was a chief program officer at Dress for Success. You know, when you walk in, you're feeling real great about yourself and you think you are facilitating and doing it. Angela said, sir, I need you to step it up some. I know you can. And without further ado, I am welcoming my friend and again, mentor, and just somebody who is just killing it in the programmatic scene, Angela Williams.
My goodness, Clay, gratitude, so much gratitude to you. You have kept me going through the years, and I am just so happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Of course. I mean, it's actually my pleasure. And so before we get into all the things that you do in the world, how do you define your purpose and who Angela Williams is? How does that, what's that definition?
Such a multifaceted question, but I will say that what I do, what you do, what we do, it's a calling. You know, people talk in terms of numbers and products, and I talk in terms of people and providing resources and opportunities for people so that they can grow and thrive. And those real evidence-based outcomes for me are how people are able to take it to the next level. So I'm passionate. I'm passionate about empowering women, children, and families. Specifically, what resonates with me is working in underserved communities so that they can thrive and prosper and move from a place of poverty to a place of prosperity. And I think my commitment to this work really kind of can be traced back to my own personal experiences growing up in the Bronx in an under-resourced household.
And what was that like? You know, I'm glad you are segueing us to your early childhood development. What was it like growing up in the Bronx? And you specifically said in an under-resourced, community. What was that like for you?
Oh my goodness. I grew up in Throgs Neck, in the Bronx, in public housing. I was raised by a very strong-willed woman, immigrant. My mom, she worked as a maid originally when she came here to New York. And then she studied during the evenings to become a teacher. And as a teacher, she chose to work with a very specific set of students. She chose to work with what they deemed a second opportunity high school. And for these students who were in a second opportunity high school, they were deemed as being irredeemable. And her mission was to help them to re-enter high school and graduate. And so my mother continued to pursue her education. She continued to move up the rank to principal.
Mhm.
And she became that very strong role model in my life. She showed me that you could come from nothing and still become something really important in the lives of people that you serve. And so growing up, I saw that strong representation, that strong modeling. And even though I grew up in an under-resourced community with an under-resourced household, I received a wealthy inheritance from my mother.
Yeah. And just talking about receiving a wealthy inheritance, I think there's so many people who have this idea. They'll say, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. If you did not have this model for you, it's up to you to figure those things out. What do you say to people who are trying to figure out, what they want to do in the world, but they don't feel they have the resources to actually get to that part?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that I lucked out about, right? Even though
Mm,
we didn't have, 3 meals a day and we didn't have discretionary income to do the recreational things that we wanted to, my mom did bestow upon me a wealthy inheritance. And that inheritance was inner
mm,
riches, including things like self-esteem and self-confidence and self-efficacy and self-determination. And she coupled that with some external riches. And those were, the mentors that she pushed me towards, and the educators, and the sponsors who took me through doors. And she did everything and anything that she could do to ensure my future success. So what I say to others is, if you can't find that within your circle, then
mm.
you have to really network outside of your circle, network, and attract these things to you and go after these things for it, because you need role models, you need mentors and coaches and sponsors and things of that nature. And if you can't get it where you are, then you've got to go after it. You've got to go get it.
Yeah, and I love, Angela, you said your the internal riches that your mother gave to you. I find it so fascinating that later on in life, for so many people who have quote unquote these external riches and things of validation, they are the ones who are trying to figure out internally who they are, that level of self-determination to be able to reflect their value inwardly and allow it to just flow outwardly. There's so many people who don't know who they are,
Right.
and who have had
Wow.
these externals, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I think about things of that nature, and I reflect often, I
Right.
reflect, I meditate, I have these spiritual rituals where I have stillness, and I'm very intentional about that. And when I reflect on things like that, and like, what would I have said to a younger Angela?
Hmm.
Knowing what I know now, what I would have said to her, experiencing that, literally, my mom moved from a place of poverty to prosperity, and then she provided the resources and tools to ensure that her daughter could do so as well. What I would say to impart is that, never give up. Never give up. I have been derailed. I have been knocked off my feet. People have told me, no, it can't happen. But you know what? You get up, you keep on getting at it, you put in the work, and it will pay off. And I would also say, to your point, be very clear about your core foundational principles. Be
Mm.
very clear about your values. Be very clear about your non-negotiables and your negotiables. And from early on, be true to thyself. And that's what keeps you going. You have a set of guiding principles, and you understand exactly that if you fall off for any reason or get derailed, you're going to pick yourself back up based upon those guiding principles, those values, and you will still be successful.
Yeah. And having a mother who was able to model that for you, and you for your learning these things for yourself, what path did you want when you were a young kid? What were you interested in doing?
Yeah, as a young adult,
Yeah.
my path was quite interesting. Actually, I spent my weekends working with autistic teens, and providing them with therapeutic recreation to help them to have fun, to play, and also to gain some social skills. And during the week, I taught sixth and seventh grade math and gym. And so It was awesome. I taught gym class, so that meant that my math class, everybody was working hard so that they could get to gym and really enjoy themselves. But yeah, I mean, my mom paved the way forward for me. She taught me the value of giving back and paving the way forward for others, which she gave to me only rightly should be bestowed upon others. Those gifts that she gave to me, I could not keep them to myself. That would be selfish of me. So it was important for me to be able to impart those on to others.
Okay. And what was your first career as you were moving forward in this world of discovering what you wanted to do and be?
Yeah, I mean, my first career was that of a teacher, and then I thought I wanted to work with people who lack mobility and had developmental disabilities and things of that nature. So I thought I wanted to work in therapeutic recreation. And it was fun. I had a great time. I was widely known on the circuit of therapeutic recreation, lots of speaking engagements, and just, connecting with a lot of like-minded individuals. And then I took a detour. I mean, my life, even though I take detours, I'm still right in the pathway of serving others, of being a servant leader, and empowering the lives of women, children, and families. So, while I took detours, it was funny because my mother would always tell me, it doesn't matter, you're going to come right back. Wherever you go, you're going to come right back because it's a calling and it called you from the very beginning.
I love that. And Angela, there are listeners in particular and viewers of this podcast who are trying to figure out how to tap into that calling that you speak so passionately about. If I'm listening to this and I'm trying to figure out, I feel like I'm doing all these detours. How do I get back to a sense of call within myself? Where do I discover that at?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I'll never forget that the question, well, actually, my mom posed it to me. She told me, like, I was graduating from high school, and she told me that, no matter where I went, no matter how I deviated, I would still come back to my calling, which would be to serve others. And sometimes I laugh at her because I'll never forget the first thing I said to her was, you know what, I've got to bring home some money, so it's all about the money. She just looked at me and she's like, yeah, you'll be back. And it's funny because when it's a calling, it literally calls you back. It's in your soul. And so, you know what happens? People get out in the world and, there's a lot of things, materialism and all that stuff that starts to attract them and glitter around them. But at the end of the day, if you have any level of spirituality, and spirituality can be your connection to the earth, your connection to other people. I mean, the COVID-19 pandemic taught us all that we are all connected. What was
Amen.
happening across the aisle was happening in New York City. We were all connected. And so, at the end of the day, if you have that spiritual ritual and you have your core values, then you can listen to the stillness of your soul, and you'll know what's best for you. What gives you inner peace, what allows you to sleep at night, what makes your life purposeful.
And you'll know what's best for you. Whew. That's what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And what so many people I hear and I know I get notes from weekly is trying to discover for themselves. And so when did you have a period of that detour, and when was that sort of you coming back to yourself? Yeah.
I mean, I was chasing the money for a little while. Okay. And then realized, like, I had an aha moment, and I realized that this was not speaking to me. It was not feeding my soul, right? And when you realize that, you are, you're, able to, put the food on the table and pay your rent and all that stuff, but use your discretionary income, but something is missing it, something is not feeding your soul, then you have to listen, because you're only going to feel that in the long run, where when your soul starts saying, hey, this is not for you, I'm not happy. So at some point I had to come back home. And I think what really did it for me was, I had opened up 2 martial arts karate schools, and, it was all about empowering the lives again of women, children, and families. And then at some point, I just felt like I needed to go back into the workforce and do something incredible. And, I joined Dress for Success, and it was all about feeding your soul and connecting to women and providing them with the tools and resources to re-enter the workforce, and, for whatever reasons, and to just become economically independent, and have the resources and tools to aid in their success. And it was just a moment of, wow, I'm home, it's family.
Wow.
Not, hey, I'm at work, but no, I'm making societal impact. It's happening across 150 affiliates across the world. And what's really happening is that women are improving their lives. And I had to really talk to myself. I'm a humanist by nature, right? I strive every day for self-actualization. So, it's important to be intentional with what you do. And it's important to be purposeful about what you do and how you do it. So, it's been a journey. It has been a journey, but it's always been a journey of empowering the lives of women, children, and families.
I love that. And so many people, Angela, don't understand what self-actualization really is. And you are somebody who lives it, breathes it, and talks about it very well. For our audience, what is self-actualization for you, and why is that important?
Well, we're humans, right? And we to err is human, but to want to be the best that you can be on any given day, it is so important, right? How you show up is very important. But do you show up because you have to, because that's what you have to show your boss, or do you show up because that's just who you are, right? Because you have that level of intrinsic self-satisfaction. And making sure it's even keel. So with your friends, how you show up with them and how you show up at work. I mean, do you have to, switch those facades of who you are, or can you actually show up across the board in the most authentic way that makes you feel good, but takes you to the next level? I mean, we are always learning about ourselves, about our communication styles, about how we affect and interact with others. And so being on that path towards self-actualization says, hey, I'm not perfect, but each and every day I strive towards getting to this level where I have this level of self-awareness, high level of emotional intelligence, and I can be very flexible wherever I am, so that I can engage and I can inspire and I can coach and I can mentor and I can feel good about myself as I'm doing it.
Yeah, I feel good about myself as I'm doing it. Last week, I had a speaking engagement at Google, and I was talking about work-life balance there. And at the end, there was this young woman who she was just almost in tears because she was saying to her hiring manager who was on the Zoom call, thank you so much, because no one ever invested in me in my path towards purpose and self-actualization like you. I've never even knew that it was possible. And so to your point, I think we're living in this world where people are not supported in the workplace to be able to even get to understand what their purpose is and how they actually can self-actualize.
Right. And it's funny because there's a whole lot of DEI work going around right now, right? Everybody's throwing that out there, right? DEI, implement DEI, blah, 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 blah. But, a part of DEI is ensuring that people can show up to work in their most authentic self. So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. It's funny. I was talking to a group of senior leaders like last week, and one of them kept asking me, well, how do you manage, right? How do you manage others? Give us examples of how you manage others. And, I explained how, I work with others. And they didn't want to hear that. And they were like, well, tell me about when you managed someone, when you had to manage them. And I just really wanted to say, hey, the day of managing people is over. The workplace landscape has changed. We don't manage them.
That's right.
We have to understand them. We are in the era of understanding people, right? Of being as humanist as possible, learning who we are working with, right? What makes them thrive? What makes them grow? Building relationships among your team. Like the whole sense of managing has They need to throw that out the window. They need to make a mental paradigm shift about that, because at the end of the day, you can only manage someone short term, but you can get to know someone and understand what makes them tick, what makes them thrive, why they're having difficulties. And that takes time, trust, and building a one-on-one relationship. As we all know, relationships are they need you to put the time in. So, the workplace is changing for the people who aren't, understanding of the fact that it's changing. That wave is coming, and either you're going to get swept up underneath it, or you're going to ride that wave out and stop managing. And help people to thrive and grow, because they are people and you want them to show up authentically. So if something is happening in their lives, you need to know about it. But if you need to know about it, how are you going to need to know about it? Well, you have to develop trust. So you have to relationship build. So it just keeps on going on and on.
And this is what we call, folks, leadership 101. And I think a lot of what you're speaking about, Angela, is basics of leadership that for so many periods of years, we have not been able to implement in the workplace at all. Right. And so for leaders who are struggling, especially folks who are listening to this podcast who are rising leaders, what do you think is the first area that they need to focus on in this journey?
Oh, yeah. Be true to thyself. You have to know who you are. You have to develop. And I'm saying this as someone who has gone through enough coaching and mentoring and to be self-aware, to understand the steps in self-awareness. Because at some point you'll be like, I'm self-aware. But then even that self-awareness needs to have another level of self-awareness. Be true to thyself. Start from the very beginning. What are your negotiables and non-negotiables? What are your core guiding principles? What are your perceptions and blind spots? Okay, that right there, the blind spots, super important.
Preach.
What kind of biases are you working on? What are the unknown biases that you're working on? Like, you have to do the work. And this is what I tell people all the time. To change behavior, to recognize and identify blind spots, you've got to do the work. And the work begins with you. When you feel that you are at a stage where you can work with you, you love you, you want to be with you, then you can lead others. But you have to recognize your flaws. You got to be true to yourself. You have to recognize your flaws and be vulnerable.
And it's so funny that you say that. I was in conversation with someone else and they were saying to me, I'm having a difficulty communicating with a colleague and I need to change about them. Where do I start? I go, well, I think you start with changing yourself first. Right. And that concept to what you're saying is foreign to a lot of people because it's not me, it's you.
Right.
That a lot of people think that they have the problem.
Right. Yeah, I'm in conflict with you, and conflict is good. So let's talk about it. How do you perceive things? How are you? Are you willing to make that mental paradigm shift? Do you want to do the hard work, the deep intrinsic work about developing yourself? Getting to know you. Some people are uncomfortable with a lot of things about themselves. Unfortunately, if that's the case, you're going to be uncomfortable about leading others.
Wow, mic drop moment. You're going to be uncomfortable about leading others.
Hey, I learned that from teaching 6th and 7th graders. If you had any insecurities about yourself, you can't teach school. Listen, I'll never forget one of my first classes. They were like, they started kind of snapping on me, ranking on me, talking about me in a way that I wouldn't want people to talk about me. But they're kids. And they're trying to, look for the holes that are going to develop. And so at some point I was like, yes, my feet are big. They're size 11. My nose is unusually large. I have this. I have that. Okay, can we move on now? So once you've identified all the things for them, there's nothing, you don't leave anything else for them to, talk to you about. You can move forward. And you know what? That's exactly how we did it. We moved forward.
Yeah, when we move forward. One thing you talked about earlier, Angela, that I want to circle back on is how you have intentionally led with purpose in your work, especially at Dress for Success when I first knew you. How important is purposeful leadership in the work that you do? And why is it that companies don't grow or organizations don't grow when it's left out of the conversation?
I think that they have words for things like that, like being mindful, mental mindfulness. Like there's a lot of different categories for it. You can find it in a self-improvement bookstore. They have various categories for it. And what happens in most workplaces that they bring in someone to talk. It's incredible, and then that's it. It stops right there. Or you read a book, it sounds wonderful, but then you don't have a plan for implementation. And that's where I think it's important to have spiritual rituals. So, people are like, I'm not a spiritual person. No, you have to have spiritual rituals for yourself. Because once you identify some changes that you'd like to make or tweaks that you'd like to implement in your behavior, you have to have a plan of action for implementing it. And so you have to take steps to ensure that you're being mindful and that you're being intentional with your words and with your actions. And that's why it's important to have, rituals like my ritual, which is very organic, it's very simple, and it's just stillness. It's a moment of stillness to the point where I can hear my heartbeat and I can hear what's happening around me, and I can experience myself as it relates to the world. And that helps me to reflect and to regroup and to really get myself back to balance. Or meditating, or something as simple as, breathing, having a moment of breathing. I have an iPhone watch. It clicks, every hour or so. It says, hey, let's breathe together. Or it says something like, you've been sitting for 4 hours. Let's take a walk. So having those levels of mindfulness and mindful breaks, not just breaks where you're doing something like looking on your iPhone and going onto Twitter. And, that's not a break, right? Everything does not break and stop. You don't have a brain break if you're still looking on Twitter or YouTube. You need stillness. And that's just my spiritual ritual. But everyone has to have their individual spiritual ritual to regroup and to refresh and to reframe so that they can tackle the rest of the day.
I love that, spiritual rituals. And I think for a lot of people, especially our podcast listeners, not having spiritual rituals keeps you in professional relationships that should have ended. Personal relationships should have ended a long time ago. For a lot of people, Angela, our number one question that we often get is, how do I know when it's time to move on to the next opportunity? So many people do not have a clue. How do we know? How did you know when it was time to leave
I know?
Yeah, this incredible career.
I have, unfortunately, I have aha moments. And some of those aha moments comes with me having executive coaching. Sometimes you're so connected to a thing because you've created it and you've invested in it, and you love it, right? And you see it and it's thrived and grown, and it was you bore it and you raised it, and you don't know when to walk away. But sometimes with things like, talking, if you can't have executive coaching, but talking to your colleagues and your peers and people that you look up to, you can actually not take advice, but walk through steps, talk through things that are happening. And your mind, which is an incredible thing, will have an aha moment. and it will say, oh my God, I've done all of this. There's no place for me to go. We need to think about the next step. Or that little angst feeling that you have in the pit of your gut that you've had for quite a while, that you're not paying attention to, that seems to grow, and all of a sudden your stomach just feels like it's hurting for no reason. And you're not listening, because a lot of people don't listen. They don't take that time to listen to their bodies, to have that moment of stillness, because your body tells you. It talks to you about your stress levels. It lets you know when you're not happy. And if you take those moments of stillness, you will know exactly what is causing that. And for me, it was definitely an aha moment. I was talking to an executive coach, and we were walking through everything that I've done and everything that I've accomplished and what will bring me joy in the next 5 years and how I would love to, expand what I do. And at that moment, it was like an aha moment. Wait a second. I've done everything I can do here. It's time for me to move on. And that's, the body sometimes tells you and you don't listen. The mind tells you and you don't listen. You listen to the heart is connected to what you have created, but in stillness, with dialogue and communication, with people who are going to be your sounding board and not your advisor, you can listen to yourself and have an aha moment.
Mic drop moment, folks. And then to that end, is it the same process when we are trying to figure out those green flags to accept the bigger than life opportunities or something that scares us?
I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time?
Sure. And so, yeah, no problem. I see there was a connection with our actual server.
Yeah, there's a connection problem.
So for the green flags and then these opportunities that then come to us, is it the same process, you think? Because so many of us, when we get something that looks like we can't handle, we feel called to do it, we're so afraid to take that step. Is it the same process or do you have something different for that?
Once again, it's listening to yourself, right? But I have a different process for that. And I always pull out my handy dandy piece of paper and I put down the pros and I put down the cons. Because if we allow fear to hold us back, we will never move forward. Opportunities will surround us and we will act like it's not an opportunity. Wow. We'll walk around with the blinders on and the opportunity is right there in our face. So, right there, it's right there. So when I mentor, my younger team, I'm like, listen, get your journal out. Let's go over the pros and the cons, right? Because a lot of people are fearful of, and I myself was fearful when I was younger of success. Because success might mean promotion and promotion might mean more work.
Oh, that's real. Don't get any realer than that.
I had a conversation with someone the other day. It was like, this is just too much work. Even with the money, it's just too much work. And it's like, okay, but you could be the next CEO of this organization. So how about you take a paper, put down the pros, put down the cons, and reimagine what you're doing and come up with a plan. That's another thing. People they are faced with an opportunity and they think that the opportunity has to remain the way it is, as it is given to them. But I didn't get to where I am by taking someone else's imagination of my opportunity. I reimagined the opportunity. When I was at Dress for Success, I was promoted at least 7 to 8 times. And it's because I created the next opportunity. I rewrote the job description. I pitched it.
There are no rules.
Stop thinking that there are rules. Get out of the matrix. Take the red, what is it, the blue pill or the red pill? Take the red pill. The bottom line is reimagine it for yourself. If some of those things on some of the criteria doesn't work for you, say it doesn't work for you. Don't be, shy about using your agency. Use your agency. What do you have to lose? There is shared power in working. There is shared power in getting a job. There is shared power in accepting a promotion. You can have that dialogue and conversation. A lot of people get stuck in the hierarchy of it, but they need you as much as you need them.
Which then leads me to another question. I know a lot of women who are afraid of taking this approach. What do you say to our listeners, which is 75% women, who are struggling with this?
Listen, this is awesome because I actually did a research study about women who fail to throw their hat into the ring for jobs based on reading the job description and seeing, let's just say that the criteria is, there's 10 things on the criteria that you have to have. And let's just say that there's 2 things they don't have. So because they had 8 of the criteria, they met 8 of the criteria out of the 10, they did not throw their hat into the ring. Well, studies show that men will have 5 of the 10 criteria, and they will throw their hat into the ring and be very clear that they don't have the other 5 criteria, but that they'll learn on the job. And they get the job.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, unfortunately, some things are inherent, some things are cultural, but, when it comes to boasting about ourselves, when it comes to stepping out and throwing your hat into the ring, when it comes to, taking a chance on ourselves, that stuff, that leadership stuff really has to be inculcated. It has to be taught. And so my advice is take a leadership program. Jump into a leadership program that's going to help you to gain that level of self-confidence, because this is real what I'm saying. It's hilarious because I'll never forget. I was interviewing, a headhunter was interviewing me, like, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago. And she said to me, well, there's like 6 criteria here, and there's one of them you don't have. So, how do you expect me to move you forward? And I said, wow, this is very interesting. So let me tell you about this research study. And I told her, and I was like, a man will throw his hat into contention without having five out of 10. And you as a woman are trying to hold me back because I don't have one out of the 6. Shame on you. She's my best friend after that. She was my best friend after that. And she realized she was being a barrier.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it's real.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Mind blown. It's just so interesting because sometimes we think we're in these empowering positions
Right.
and we are creating blockades in front of folks and stunting their career and personal growth. That is something.
Yeah.
So, Angela, segueing to you leaving Dress for Success and moving on to the next venture, what was your focal point of your process of thinking that you wanted to do to grow to the next level?
Yeah. First of all, I love Dress for Success. I love Joy Gordon. We were very close. We had a great relationship. And at Dress for Success, they were really grooming me to be that next person. And, at some point, Joy and I, we had very, very deep mentoring type of conversations. And she was like, Angela, you've been ready to move on. And I'm not at the phase where I'm going to move on. So I give you my blessing to move on. And I had been receiving executive coaching at the time, and I had already had my epiphany about, hey, it's time for me to move on. I've done everything I can here. It's time to move on, pave my way forward. And so, going out there and being intentional about my interviewing. It was funny because when you're interviewing from a place of power, it's totally different. It's like, listen,
it is.
I'm looking for that next home, right? But I'm still in a good place. So we're having a mutually beneficial interview. I'm interviewing you while you're interviewing me because I want to make sure that the next place I go is going to be my home, So I was very intentional about the opportunities presented to me, right? I wanted to make sure that I was seeing all the red flags, that I was seeing the green flags. It was a process. It was a process. I would say that I probably jumped a little bit too fast for my first opportunity, which was being an executive director at a youth development program. But that wasn't the opportunity for me. I did not listen to myself. And I'll be very clear. I felt that I was jumping too fast at the time. I was a little bit uneasy about it, but I jumped anyway. Well, guess what? It's a learning. It's part of the journey. And I learned a great deal because the next time I jumped, I was very clear about my questions, my communications, who I wanted to talk to, what type of documents I wanted to see about the organization, where they got their funding from. I was very well prepared. And sometimes that's what happens from failure. You learn. You know exactly how to move forward. So you have to take the learnings and the challenges and the successes and the failures all together. All of that together is life.
Yeah. And you filter through all the things you need to learn so that you can land in your next home opportunity and position. Right. And which leads me to where you are today. Angela, where are you today and what are you doing?
Absolutely. Oh, I found a home. I'm now at Common Denominator. They were formerly Top Honors. And, it's a small nonprofit organization We provide free individualized one-on-one math tutoring to middle school students from underrepresented, underserved communities in New York City. Our goal is really to help middle school students, get ahead of that, estimated learning loss from the pandemic, improve their math skills, build self-confidence, and enjoy doing math. I like to think of it as we're all math people. If you ask people, right, if you just walk up to people and say, hey, do you know how to read? Everybody will look at you like you're crazy, like, yeah, I know how to read. I know how to read. But then you ask someone, are you good at math? And they're like, I'm not a math person. I'm not a math. What do you mean you're not a math person? Spend money. You know what's in your pocket. You know what size your rug is. You know how many cans of paint you have to purchase to paint your home. You know how much you need to do X, Y, and Z. How your music. Oh, everything is math. Everything is math. So now I've dedicated my life to breaking down barriers that might impede middle school students from getting the opportunity to have a qualified math tutor who will serve not only as their tutor, but their coach and mentor. And, once again, that resonates with me because I remember not doing so well in sixth grade and my mother not having the resources to get me a math tutor and still sacrificing things like food on the table to get me help in math. My tutor used to come in every Sunday, Mr. Papazian, and he really helped me to excel and to move forward. And we didn't have the resources to do that at all. So that was a tremendous sacrifice for my mom. So, if we can provide middle school students in fragile communities with free quality math tutoring, then by all means, I want to make sure that the experience is optimal, that they are improving their math skills, and that our tutors themselves find it to be a very rewarding experience.
And how's the growth been like since you've been there?
It's been amazing. So, I'm coming on my first year, this week, and we've kind of doubled in size, and our revenue has doubled in size, and we are expanding our growth. We're doubling our capacity. We're serving double the amount of students. It's just been a whirlwind of just greatness, and we were afforded the opportunity to get a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation grant, which has really taken what we do to another level, so that we can run culturally responsive math tutoring directly into specific schools in New York City. So it's been incredible. And the team themselves, when it comes to the board and, the team, the staffing, and the councils and the committees that we work with, they are just so mission driven and passionate about this cause. And it's just tremendous to work with them each and every day.
Wow, I love that. Congratulations on the grant as well as your first year at Common Denominator. And for you, Angela, you've referenced this earlier in our conversation about coming in and reimagining and creating and, taking it to the next level. What is your vision for the organization? Where do you see that going?
Wow, I really see us canvassing New York City and ensuring that every student who needs math tutoring, a math tutor, a quality math tutor, receives one. And also I'd like to take Common Denominator outside of New York City and start, creating, affiliates all across the country. So, we're looking at expanding into New Jersey and Philadelphia, starting on the East Coast and then moving on to the Midwest and the West Coast. But, we want to start where we are, homegrown, make sure that our neck of the woods is totally covered. And then we'd really love to see some grand expansion.
Yeah. Talk about like a full circle moment from where you were as a young young kid, excuse me, and to where you are right now and the work that you're doing. What has surprised you most about yourself during this whole entire journey? One or a few things?
For me, I just keep on thinking about my mom telling me, I don't care what you do, where you go, you're always going to come back to serving others. And she was right. I hate to tell her that, but she was right. And then I think it's my resiliency. It's like no matter what barrier, constraint, derailment may have befallen me, that I was able to gather myself back up and just keep on moving forward. And I think that having such a strong belief system, even in the face of adversity, is everything. And that needs to be nurtured and supported. And so, with that being said, having the right colleagues around you, having the right people around you, thanking people like you for really being there for me and supporting me and helping me to think through things without being advisors, allowing me to think through things. Because that's a lot of times people try to problem solve and give advice.
Yes.
And it's not what you need. But yeah, making sure you're connected to the correct affiliations to provide you with continued learning. All of those things are necessary to keep you feeling purposeful and to feed your soul.
Yeah. One last question I have for you that I definitely cannot not ask before you leave our time. A number 2 question I get all the time is, how do I vision? Being somebody that has created programs and opportunities all over the globe, just not in the United States, all over the world, what would you say to people is maybe a first or a couple of steps in knowing or learning how to become their own visionary for themselves and for the work that they do?
Wow, that is a great question. I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to being creative or, a visionary, I think we all are like that. We're all born that way. I mean, the thing is, we used to dream all the time when we were kids, right? You remember your parent telling you or your parents telling you, you're a dreamer. Go back to those dreams, right? If you've gotten lost somewhere, go back to those dreams, because those dreams used to direct you. They used to touch you and direct you about what you wanted to do, how you wanted to do it. And think about those dreams. And then think about, your future, right? Be future forward. And so think about your present and your future. I mean, that's what visionaries do. They think about what was, what is, and what can be. And you really have to open up your cup for that, right? Because if you are a rigid person, it is difficult to see anything that's not in front of you. But if you, once again, I'm going to go back to my spiritual rituals, because when you are clear, when you have focus and clarity, you attract things to you. And when you attract things to you, it'll help you to pave the way forward. A lot of my thinking comes when I'm sleeping. That's why I do 2 things. I used to have a pad that I kept next to my bed. Now I just have my iPhone and I just hit record and I say it so that I can move forward on it in the morning. Like when I'm being a creative, it comes at all times of the day, but it mostly comes when I'm sleeping. When I'm sleeping, I'm also very clear and I'm thinking. And so if I jump up, I want to just put that iPhone, click that record, say what I need to say, and then keep it moving. I mean, being a creative like that and just having a free flow of thought, that's why they tell you as a leader, take about 15 minutes a day to do nothing. Mm-hmm. Because when you're clear, that's when it comes. You don't want to force it. You just want it to be free flowing thought. And when it's free flowing thought, just jot it down. Any way it is, don't try to be grammatically correct. Just jot it down. Some of those things won't make sense. Some of it will, and that's how you begin. It's very simple. It's organic.
It's already within you, folks. It's already within you.
You were given inherent wealth, wealthy inheritance, but, don't cast it aside. Welcome it.
Angela, you have given us a masterclass of riches. And I'm telling you, from purposeful leadership, servant leadership, to being a visionary, to following that voice inside of us, to looking back to our own pathologies and looking at our blind spots, is so rich and so much. For folks who want to support you and the organization Common Denominator, how can we do that? Where can we find you?
Oh my goodness, please do not hesitate to contact me. I am Angela, Angela at cdmath.org. Or just go to cdmath.org and get to know us. Just get to know Common Denominator at a glance.
Yeah. Angela, thank you so much for this time. I cannot tell you how I've been waiting for this, and I can't wait now another year for your anniversary. Fingers crossed. that I can have you back to come and just share where you all are. Thank you so much. I want to say on a personal note for enriching my life, for being so supportive and helping me grow into the person that I am today and envision myself to be as well.
And Clay, back at you, because that's how we thrive, right? You build a community of like-minded individuals, and quite frankly, we can do big things and change the world. Thank you.
And change the world. So listen, folks, I have all of Angela's information at the base of the show notes. Of course, you can learn more about me by visiting clayswilliams.com. And I'm on all your favorite social media by the handle of @PlanA with Clay. That's @Plan A with Clay. Remember, folks, Clay is with a K. Thanks for listening. I look forward to seeing you in our very next episode of Plan A Conversations. Peace, folks.